Welcome to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and I'm so excited to have you here. This podcast is about all things wellness. Each week, we will focus on a word of the day, and I interview some of the most inspirational people I know and share that inspiration with you. Join me, let's learn together on What's the Word.
This is the place where I belong.
Welcome to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and today's podcast, I am so excited. We are going to talk with a super duper empowering human. She is actually the CEO and founder of Empower Her podcast, founder and CEO of She Goes Company, where they help serve empowering women with their podcast to grow and enhance and monetize and all those beautiful things. You chose the word alignment today, which by definition means arrangement in a straight line or relative positions, a position of agreement or alliance. And I'm going to just right now shout you out. Kacia Fitzgerald, you are amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. And we're going to discuss the word you chose, alignment. So with that being said,
Yeah. Jamie, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be here.
I was
with you.
Did I say your name wrong?
No, you're so good.
Okay.
I'm pumped. I'm pumped to talk about alignment and all the things. And thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for all that you do to empower other women in this space. And, talking today about alignment. So I just want to dive in right away. You chose that word. What does it mean to you? And, what are you feeling right now with alignment?
I think especially for, women in general, I love helping and serving women. And I think a lot of us struggle with alignment because of everybody else's expectations of what we should be doing, of where we should be at a certain stage in our career or a certain age, or just these like social constructs that we have to try and fit into these boxes, especially as women. I think we struggle a lot with that. So alignment to me is more about asking yourself internally, like, what is it that I actually want? And am I getting myself closer to where I want to be? Because direction is so much more important than speed. Or am I actually just kind of going through the motions? Because we don't know how much time we have here, right? We've all got a TBD amount of days. And it's really important to me to help women figure out, like, what is that gift of that vision that you have on your heart? And then how can we get out of your own damn way? Like, how can we help you do that so you can live a life that does feel in alignment for you, even if it doesn't look like your best friend, your sister, or what your parents think that you should be doing, right? So super important to me, and a constantly evolving journey, which is why I like the word alignment, because it's constantly like, ooh, got to align here, got to pivot, got to switch, got to do all the things, right? And you're never just always in alignment. It's tweaking as you go.
Wow. I love that so much. And thank you. And once again, thank you for what you do, because I just recently listened to your podcast for the first time. And the first one that I clicked on was all about fear and kind of facing your fears. And you just tapped into so many beautiful elements. I was on a walk and I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder you have this empowering podcast. Not only is your voice beautiful to listen to and so full of energy, but you dropped so many gems and even science and just so much motivation to help someone get out of their own way. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that goes into, I will say, like, that day I was kind of in a funky mood. I maybe didn't sleep so good. My toddler was having her tantrums, whatever else. And I was like, I'm just going on a walk for just like a hot minute. And I listened to your podcast and I was like, yes. And I came back and I was like, I felt like I was back in my own alignment. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, today what we're really going to talk about. So let's get into, I want to dive into actually you and your journey into your alignment. So can you just fill us in, whoever's watching or listening, on a little bit of Kacia's journey to get here?
For sure. So I did what I thought that I should do. As in, I went to high school, went to college, got the job, was, on this track to work my way up the corporate ladder. And for me, I always had this gut feeling that I wanted something different, but I didn't know what that was. I wanted something that was honestly more in alignment, to keep using this word throughout the chat here today. But because I didn't know what it was, and because we're often, become a reflection of the expectations of our peer group, I was naturally kind of comparing myself to my girlfriends, and they're counting down the days till Friday, and it's just kind of what we do. We work our way up. And I just felt like I got to a point where I couldn't shove it down anymore, and I had to make some sort of change. And for me, my actual, my first business was something that I started on the side as a side hustle while working a full-time job as a project manager in an IT company, which was definitely not aligned with my personality. I'm very bubbly, very outgoing. I was working with men that were like 20 years older than me. I felt like I kind of had to, as Brene Brown would say, like hustle for my worthiness. I had to really like fit into this box that really wasn't designed for my type of personality and skill set. But on paper, it made sense. And I had a lot of career trajectory and I made a great income and I actually had great managers. So it was kind of one of those situations of like a good to great of this is really good. A lot of people are clapping for me, but it just doesn't feel like it's actually the path that I'm supposed to be on. So from that started a side hustle, which was actually in network marketing was my first business. And at the time, my now fiance and I were living in Seattle. We moved to New York City for him to go to NYU dental school. That side hustle took off because I was really passionate about helping women in the personal development space. And often for those of you listening that are entrepreneurs or building side hustles, you know, your mindset is the most important thing in building a business. It's not the tactical things. It's what you think about your ability. And I saw a lot of success in that. I helped a lot of women launch businesses, grew a massive team. And then I had that gut feeling come up again where I was like, this doesn't feel like this is the right path for me. I want to do something else. And I know now at this point in my journey, not to try and smush it down, because if you smush it down, eventually it's going to come back up again. You might as well just make the step, even though you're scared, even though you don't know what the outcome's going to be. And I decided almost 3 years ago now to start my podcast, Empower Her, in November of 2018. The goal with the podcast was to create like a come with me, let's figure this out together, rather than like a look at me, I've got this all figured out type of podcast and community. And built it up, was really consistent while doing that, and decided to then launch a company creating products that the community told me that they wanted, which was a really powerful way that I've just started building my company, which started with a membership community. Then it turned into a lot of women saying, Kacia, I want to start a podcast. Can you help me do that? Turned into a podcast course and then a podcast mastermind because women wanted to learn how to monetize, grow, and scale their podcast. Meanwhile, launching merch lines and all sorts of things that have just been coming up, and trying to listen intuitively to those tugs at my heartstring and be an example of someone who doesn't have it all figured out, but is willing to try, because I'm much more fearful of regret than I am of failure. And, that's been the path. It's just been all sorts of squiggles. You know, it's never linear. It's just a lot of crying on my bathroom floor, like the ugly cry where your snot and your mascara get together in your mouth and you're like, what am I doing with my life? And then going back to, does this feel aligned for me? Am I making a decision that I actually want, or am I doing what I think I should want? And that's always been a real like driving force for me, is going more internal.
Wow. Well, and I think two things that you just said right now. First of all, listening to your internal, right, which can be really hard because we try to push that down a lot. We're conditioned to believe, this thing, when in reality we don't really listen. So that's huge. And then the other thing, try. And that's come up in like 3 other interviews just today, where people have talked really about trying and like just putting yourself out there, even if you're afraid or even if you're not sure, or even, it may not be exactly where you're thinking you want to go, but then it's going to take you somewhere. So to someone that's listening right now, because you went from super duper corporate America, and by the way, congratulations that you're going to be getting married. I think you said in 7 months?
Yeah.
2 months? Yeah.
Finally, after 12 and a half years of dating. So yeah.
Stop it. Wow. I love that.
And a canceled venue, because it wasn't aligned for us.
Right. There we go. Back to alignment. There we go. Well, congratulations. I'm so pumped for you. And to those that are listening or watching right now that are going, okay, I'm feeling this vibe, like love the energy, and I love what she's saying. Because I know people have told me this. They're like, okay, well, you just like, you're not afraid. Like you just go and do it. And I'm like, no, I'm scared shitless half the time. And I don't know what the heck I'm doing half the time. Can you explain, when it comes to alignment, for someone that's listening right now, like what's the first step? Like, what do we do? Give some tips, like drop out your gems.
So a couple of things that I think are really simple and very tactical is thinking about things that you're mildly curious in and doing something in the next 24 hours to move the needle forward. It could be, honestly, I want to get into fitness. I want to run a marathon. Most people can't probably run a marathon tomorrow, but you can definitely find when a marathon is, pick the date and sign up for the marathon. You can do that in the next 24 hours, right? Maybe you can't write your entire book that you want to write, but you can call your shot on social media and say, I'm going to write a book. Maybe you can't move to that city that you want to move to, but you can sit down and have a real conversation with your significant other of why you want to make that move or whatever it is. Like finding something that you're mildly curious in, that you feel like could be a good step for you in the right direction, and just be willing to take one step in the right direction. Because once you get that momentum, you can start like moving in that direction and building up that confidence as you go. And I think what happens is you start to build this confidence in your ability to kind of figure out the path, but you can't build that confidence when you're sitting in analysis paralysis, waiting to feel ready. So you've got to take some sort of action. And I think that's a very simple, I guess, easy to say, but not as easy to do because we get caught up in our head. Or to the woman or man listening to this, that's like, that sounds great, but like, I don't even know what I'm mildly curious in. And I think for me, I always go back to this idea of picking problems to solve, whether it's for myself, for people that I love, or for the world at large. And for some people, that means I want to contribute and work at an organization that solves this particular problem for the world. For some people, that's I want to help this particular demographic. I struggled with, say someone's story is I struggled with infertility. They really want to help someone in that particular area of their life. They struggled with anxiety. They want to go become a therapist, right? They're interested in that. Or maybe they have a problem of, I wanted to work on my health and fitness goals, so I want to start a training program where I help other people do that. Finding problems, things that kind of frustrate you, annoy you, or you just find they're just kind of like, well, like irks. You're like, oh, I'd love to fix this. That can actually be a really powerful indication of the right step for you to start taking. And then it goes to the whole idea of actually doing something about it. Don't sit and think that collecting all of this information is going to give you the fulfillment that you're craving in your life. You're not going to get that when you're just sitting on your couch thinking about it. It's going to come from actually doing it and knowing that you're not supposed to feel ready. Like as humans, we crave growth and we so often care about contribution to the world, but you don't get that feeling that you want if you're just sitting around waiting until life calms down. When does life calm down? Right? Like ever, especially for the moms and like the parents listening to this. I'm like, I'm not a human mom, but like, I don't know any season of life where it calms down. So like, just buckle up. You're going to have to go.
I love that so much. And yes, so true. And thank you for saying all of that and making it just that simple. That I think we sometimes will get in the, like you said, the analysis paralysis where we're like so busy thinking about all these things, but we're not actually acting on them. We're not taking that little action. And I think that goes into any facet in our life, our well-being, everything. So for someone that's listening, okay, and we're going to take it just one step further back is, let's say someone's going, because I see this often when they get to the root of why, like, 'cause my thing's self-care, right? So when they get to the root of why they're not taking responsibility or action on their self-care, a lot of the times, believe it or not, it ends up being a lack of self-worth or feeling worthy of this, right? Like they'll look at you and I and say, oh, well, of course, like I support you doing this, but I don't know if I'm worth it, right? So to someone that might be listening or watching right now, is there anything that you can, because you have a lot of motivation and I just want to hear what you have to say about this, but something that you can offer to someone that's kind of feeling like, I wish I could, but I just don't know if,
I think what's really powerful is this whole concept of extension benefit. So thinking who else is going to benefit as a byproduct of me going for it, and maybe who could be negatively impacted if I don't. And let's start with just sometimes for people that are in this state of I don't feel worthy, I want you to have that confidence for yourself internally, but sometimes it's easier to start with someone that you love and then to think about the world at large. So starting with someone that you love, say you are a parent, for example. I am so driven by the idea of wanting to be living, breathing proof of what's possible for my kids one day, right? Like, I don't want them to just hear me say, oh yeah, you can do anything that you set your mind to, like, go get them, little girl, little boy, right? I want them to say, Mom, I know I can. I watched you. So who is going to benefit if you decide that you are worthy and that you go do that thing that's on your heart? Well, it's probably going to be your kids. It's going to be your significant other. It's going to be your friends, like picking people in your life that you love and have a close relationship and thinking, how could this inspire them to take action? Not in the same way, but maybe you taking control of your health, or you deciding that you are worth it to go start that blog or launch that podcast or launch that Etsy shop, or even just go back to school, whatever it is. Like, when you decide that you're worth it, who else is going to get to watch you do that and be inspired in their life, or see an example, a living, breathing testimony of what's possible for them too? And then when you think about someone who maybe they say like, Kacia, Jamie, like, oh, good for you, I'll clap for you, but I don't think that I'm capable. The same person that, say they're looking at us thinking that, or looking at someone else thinking that. Well, I want to remind you that just like you're looking at someone else thinking I could never do that, someone is looking at you thinking that you are an example of what's possible for them. So if you don't show up for yourself, not only do I feel like you're robbing yourself of the fulfillment that you really want in your life, the happiness, the joy, like the opportunity cost is too big for you not to show up and do those things that you feel are aligned for you, because it's impacting you, and then it's also impacting the other woman out there that's wanting to see an example of someone just like you do it with your skill set, because you're introverted, because you're struggling with anxiety, because you're struggling with postpartum depression, because you're navigating whatever it is that you're navigating. She's got to see you do it, because she won't connect with someone like us, maybe because she's saying, well, she doesn't get me, but you get her. And even if you don't know who that person is, it could be someone that's your neighbor down the street, or your random cousin, or some girl that you're connected with on Instagram from third grade, like whatever. It doesn't matter who it is, but that internal belief that like, I believe that you're worthy just for existing. But until you get that confidence, it's almost like that idea of who else could be impacted as you're in pursuit of increasing your own confidence. And from that worthiness, like, I like to think of confidence and worthiness kind of in the same bucket, where if confidence is a bucket, every single time that you show up and you keep a promise to yourself, you do the thing that you said that you're going to do after the feeling that you said it and is gone. The little things, even just like, I'm drinking a bunch of water today. I'm actually going to call this person back. Like, I'm going to do this laundry. I'm going to raise my hand in that meeting, because like Ted in HR keeps sharing his ideas that you think yours aren't good. Whatever. Ted, calm down. Right. Like, it's like, whatever that is for you, it's those tiny little things that every single time you do those, it's like a deposit into your confidence bucket. So I want to challenge that person who is struggling with not feeling worthy to focus on that extension benefit. Who else is going to benefit as a byproduct? How could they be harmed if you don't? And then simultaneously focusing on just having the root of everything you're doing right now being confidence building. As in, keep a little promise to yourself every single day. Show up with like 3 things that you're going to do. They don't have to be massive things. You don't need to launch a business and run a marathon and like fix your marriage. Like, but literally, like, I want to do these tiny things. And at the end of the day, when you're brushing your teeth before you go to bed, start thinking about those things that you did that day and start to see that those are these deposits, so that when life throws you a curveball, or someone doesn't understand your vision, or you start to really have that negative self-talk and start to spiral, it feels like a smack on the side of your bucket, for sake of this example, but all of your confidence doesn't slosh out because you're slowly building it deposit by deposit.
Oh, I love it. First of all, for anyone first of all, I hope people are watching, but if they're listening, because I know a lot of people like the audio, your visual cues are exceptional. So now I want to dive into and ask you, I'm not kidding you, 2 parts to this. One is, have you always had this spark? Because your spark, Kacia, is, I think, really what defines you and sets you apart from anyone that I've interviewed. And it's so fascinating. I'm so happy to know you and to work with you and to hopefully work beyond this. And at the same time, that's the first question, is, have you always had this spark? And the second question is, if you have or haven't, who has been your biggest inspiration in getting the spark?
First of all, thank you. Yeah. That's so sweet of you. I think my childhood, I had to be very independent and I had to do a lot of things for myself. And early on, I learned that I could be a fully expressed version of myself and I could build more like strong connections. My friends became also part of my family, kind of from a need for survival to a certain degree, and some not on a really drastic manner, but I just knew early on that if I was myself, that I was going to have more fun and that I could inspire other people to be more themselves. And I knew that from a really early age. So I've always been very like bubbly and effervescent, but part of it was also because it was escapism from reality of growing up with someone that struggled with addiction and had a lot of issues in that department. That became my coping mechanism from an early age. And then it's also now just become like part of my identity and who I am. Right. So I've always been kind of like, whoa, like all over the place. But I also made a conscious decision probably about 7 years ago when I got into this like entrepreneurial space, that when I first started my journey, I was like, what is my human goal? And I always have a human goal of how I want to grow as a person in pursuit of all of the goals, rather than just waiting until I get to some like quote unquote arrival point and feel like I've made it. And my human goal has always been just be more myself, the person that I am when I'm with my fiance, when I'm with my best friends, and I'm just like weird and goofy. And I wanted to always crank up the volume on being more myself so I could feel more aligned and just have more fulfillment in my life and then be an example to other people. So that's always been a driver. Started from a coping mechanism, and then kind of evolved over 32 years. And then as far as inspiration, I think I'm really inspired by people that in general just are willing to do something that makes them uncomfortable and constantly push the needle in whatever degree that is, whether that's people that I know in my personal life that maybe listeners wouldn't know to people that are just constantly evolving in their careers, right? People like Will Smith, I don't know, I just came to mind, but like of constantly challenging yourself to just step outside what is expected of you, like maybe picking different like movie roles, that type of thing. And then my grandma is like my favorite human. She just loves people and she's ruthlessly obsessed with like wanting to serve the world in a massive way. And that's rubbed off on me from an early age for sure.
Oh, I love that. What's your grandma's name?
Lynn. That's
Lynn.
my middle name. Yeah.
Oh,
Lynn.
I love
She's so
that.
great.
Well,
and she
sending love to Lynn,
exercises like 5 days a week. And she's been doing that since John F. Kennedy was president. He like sent out this workout regimen to everyone. She like rolls out her little mat and she's just, she's so cute. So
wait, I have to ask, where are you in the country?
I'm in Austin right now. My fiance and I live in Austin, but we're originally from the Seattle area.
Oh, nice. Oh, beautiful. Love both of those areas. I used to be a flight attendant and those were two of my routes. So very familiar with both. Yeah. Love those. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing that because really, I mean, you radiate motivation and you radiate this gift that you give to others to help empower them. And it's in your podcast and it's in your social media and it's in everything that you are doing. It's really, you know, you have this and you are so aligned and it's so clear that you're so aligned. And at the end of the day, it's interesting to hear you say, okay, I love that you brought up your grandma, but I love that you also tapped into the fact that you got more aligned the more that you brought out your authentic power and were your true authentic self. Because I think, especially for anyone listening, watching, all that, and don't get me wrong, like, do I sometimes compare myself to other people on social media or do I find myself going, maybe I'm not pretty enough, I'm not this, but certainly, like, I think that that's part of our human conditioning. At the same time, reminding ourselves that what our superpower is that we are us. Like you are you and I am me. And that's what the coolest thing is. So the more that we can tap into that and believe it, the more that it radiates to others to, I think, also inspire them to do the same thing. And you tapped into something else that I want to dive into when it comes to alignment and inspiration. My biggest goal in life is, especially with my daughter, it's to lead by example. And not just my daughter, but in any which way, right? Like, and similar to you, I grew up with a parent that had every sort of addiction possible, passed away really young. And that was my biggest catalyst for my own change in my life, right? And so I think you and I have a lot of similarities and crossovers, but it's always inspired me lead by example. Because if I, at the end of the day, when I am brushing my teeth and facing my own mirror, go, okay, well, maybe I screwed up in these ways, but I still drank water, I exercised, and I'm going to bed on time, or what I did my job or whatnot. So when it comes to leading by example for you, and I know you touched about that too, is like, how do you find ways to stay in alignment so that you can do that? Because I know you're very busy, you run a business, you know, you're doing a lot of different things. So how do you stay in alignment so that you can continue to lead by example?
So this is going to be kind of an interesting answer, but I have so give me a second to unpack this, but I have kind of a relationship with me 1 year from now and me 1 year ago. And I toggle through them in my brain where I think about the way that I'm showing up now, what gifts am I giving to a future version of me? And then I think about the last year, and anyone listening or watching into this can think about this. Like the last year, I'm sure there's been some really hard stuff that you've navigated through, right? That you had no idea when it came up. You're like, how am I gonna handle this? Like, I don't have tools in my toolbox. I don't have coping mechanisms. Like, I don't even know how to handle this. But you look back at how you got through it and how you became stronger even on the other end of it. So I like to kind of just like toggle between being present where my feet are and everything that I'm doing. Like right now I am like in this conversation with you, Jamie, like I don't even know what's going on. Like who knows what my dog's doing, whatever. But I also simultaneously think about this, how far I've come in a year. I think about like the company and just how I am as a person in my relationship. And I toggle back and forth between that. And because I do, I'm constantly trying to think like, what gifts can I give to a future version of me? What doors do I not even know yet that I could be opening from doing the really unsexy, mundane things that I need to do on a regular basis to, for my example, like grow my community, grow my business, the things that are easy to do, but are also easy not to do. And when I can can really connect to this other version of me. And I think about her and how the only way that she can get the life that she wants is from me doing the work now. I'm able to think about, I'm setting an example for her too, right? I'm setting an example for people in my life, but I'm also gifting her opportunities that she won't have if I don't show up. And I just don't want to rob her of that. And it sounds kind of weird and a little bit like woo woo, but it's cool. A really powerful catalyst for me is I constantly am going back and forth between that. So I'm feeling proud of where I've come from because I know how far I've come. And anyone listening to this, like you are the one, you know what you had to get through to get where you are today, whether that's in your mental state, your relationships, your business, your career, financial, it doesn't matter, your health. You know, you're the only one that knows because you're the one that has to give yourself the pep talks every single day when you want to throw in the towel or when you feel like you just suck or when you're starting something new and you're like, why am I so crappy at this? Because that's how everybody is when we start something new. But you had to work through it. And I think, so when I think about leading by example, I'm also thinking about leading by example and honoring the past that got me here, that I'm not going to just like get this far to only come this far, you know?
Right. And I like that you tapped about that too, because I think sometimes, any of us can do this where we might look at the past and feel, defeated or sad or I didn't do this or, whatnot.
Yeah.
There's the negative side, right? That we all can go to. And I think that oftentimes that ends up being the easier side to go to as opposed to going, well, but what did I learn and how did I grow? And I love that you just said, but you got here. Like whoever's listening right now, like all of the shit that you've been through that led you up to this point, like you're still here. Yeah. You're still going. So that now segues into the next question I want to ask you because your company is called She Goes, right? Yeah. So can you just tell us a little bit about your company, about your brand? Like, what are you doing? What are your goals? Like, because I want to support you and what you're doing. I love what you're doing.
You're so sweet. Thank you. So She Goes originally was, and this will be helpful for anyone that's at this stage of like, but I don't know exactly where this is going to evolve into. I started in January of 2020 with the intention that it was going to be a live events company, meaning, which obviously 3 months before COVID, I envisioned like bringing women together in communities like She Goes Nashville, She Goes, Seattle, She Goes Austin, whatever, having different meetups. And what I learned is people want to be in community with other women. And everything that we do at She Goes involves putting women together in community. And when I started to realize how many women have incredible stories, I mean, honestly, I think everybody has a story that they should share, but a lot of people feel compelled to share it, but they're the ones, their mindset is what's blocking them from actually taking action to share it. And because I'm so passionate about this type of a platform, because it's like people could be listening to us like in the shower,
from anywhere,
Trader Joe's, literally anywhere. Like, it's such a beautiful medium that people can take with them and feel like they're just sitting with us, like we're all girlfriends or like a guy friend chatting, right? And I think because I was so passionate about that platform and so many women that I started to connect with, we kind of shifted the focus of She Goes company where it's like, we just need to help her do whatever it is that she wants to do. So that then branched into helping female podcasters because only 20% of podcasters are female. And that just doesn't sit well with me. So we help women launch their podcast in a 4-week course. And then that then developed into a mastermind, a 10-week mastermind where we help existing podcasters grow, scale, and monetize. Because I also think women should get paid to do the work of putting themselves out there. And turned into all of these other different caveats. So basically it's going to continue to evolve where eventually we'll be doing things in the live event space. I see like a whole philanthropic branch where we're helping women with like small business grants, helping them launch their ideas on their heart and really just helping women get their stories and messages out into the world and doing it all where it's a connection based. Like our course is not evergreen as in you don't go through it on your own. It's done in cohorts because I think there's a lot of power in community and that's just like the root of everything I do now.
Oh, I love this so very much. So for anyone that's listening right now that let's say is coming from my community who doesn't know you yet, now they're like, okay, I'm pumped. I have this idea or I want to do something. Where's the best place for someone to find you?
Yeah. Come check out my podcast, Empower Her. It's a Monday, Thursday podcast. And I am so good at answering DMs on Instagram, which is my favorite platform. It's just at Kacia, Kacia.Fitzgerald. Come say hi. Let us know that you listened in. It's always helpful. You know, Jamie, like as a podcaster, it's always helpful when Jamie's putting out episodes. If you're listening to this podcast, like tag her on social media, tag both of us. Let us know that you resonate with it so that we can keep putting out content, because they don't realize sometimes like, it's a lot of work to put out content like this and put yourself out there. So thank you, Jamie, for doing the work that you're doing too.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I love it. And with that being said, now I want to dive into our speed round. So this is how I like to kind of sum everything up as just a fun little speed round. And so first things that come to your mind, okay?
Okay, cool. I love this.
Yeah, just fun. Pizza or tacos?
Tacos. Done.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Flying.
Love it. That's like, I think everyone's today. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote or mantra?
Easy robs you of proud, which is what I just tell myself. I don't want the easy path, because then I look back and I'm like, I don't get to feel fulfilled. So easy robs you of proud. I also made a tank top that says
Did you?
So,
do you have a clothing line? I feel like you do.
Yeah, we have a merch line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. That's
It's
amazing.
a fun workout tank. It just makes you go down for one more push-up. You're like, oh, fine, I'll do it.
I love it. Which leads me to the next question. Favorite exercise?
I would say oh God. I like lifting weights actually, because I like to feel really strong. But then I love like a good like Peloton ride or like a HIIT workout where I'm so sweaty that I'm just like, I have to shower. Like I love feeling like I just crushed it. I'm not really like a yoga or slow pace type of workout person, but I'm also trying to tap into that. So
well, that was my next question, was like the least favorite, but I think you just answered that right there. Yeah. And I have to say also, I was someone who I definitely didn't think I could ever be a yogi or that I would ever like yoga. And then after probably like my 100th yoga class, it like clicked, and all of a sudden then I was like, I'm getting certified and I teach it and I this, and I was like, okay, well,
which I know I love
yin
it.
and yang. Yeah.
Well, I know that I need it too. And it's like, I know that I need the calming aspect of it mentally, like the mental clarity that comes from slowing down. I know I need the contrast. So I'm going to become a yogi, and then I'm just going to be sliding into your DMs being like, I did yoga again today. Go me.
Yes. I love it so much. Well, I hope we can do yoga together sometime soon. If you could travel anywhere right now, where would you go?
So we are actually, for our honeymoon, we're going to do Greece and the Amalfi Coast. And yes, I know, right? My fiance and I have been together for 12 and a half years, and we've been like holding that trip for our honeymoon. But after we get married, we're going to go like remote for a while. We're just going to live in a different state. We're going to go travel to some different locations and kind of just like take our business remote, which I'm really excited to do, and just like have no home base until we decide to like, have kids or something, and maybe we need to settle down a little bit. TBD.
Or be like the bucket list family, right?
Yeah,
like you could do that. So now, actually, does your fiance work with you? Do you work together?
So he just focused on a decision that he made out of alignment, where he is a dentist and moved part-time to kind of be like an on-call dentist. And he's getting into like real estate investment. So we can have a little bit more, he didn't want the brick and mortar, like working in an actual office. So he just left a couple months ago. So we're in this really new transition. He helps me with some stuff business-wise, and is also kind of in his own space trying to figure out what he's doing too. So it's a lot of conversations of, I'm like, babe, this is what it feels like to be an entrepreneur, where you're in the ocean and you don't know which direction you're going to go. Buckle up. I'm like, it's not easy, but it's worth it.
Not easy, but worth it. Absolutely. 100%. Is there anything that you're afraid of?
Not living up to my potential. And that's a big driver, where I feel like I'm gifted this vision and so much energy that it's really like, it's sometimes annoying to myself, where I feel like a bunch of squirrels are like at a rave in my head often. And there's like 800 tabs open in my brain, where I'm like, gosh, if I'm gifted this vision and I'm also gifted energy, I want to make sure that I hone in on it and direct it in the right way. And that's constantly on the forefront of my brain, which has kind of developed into a fear, which then helps me take action. So it's a good fear.
Right. And I love that. And just as a reminder to anyone that's listening, that's like fear into action. Yeah. You could totally do that. And I'm gonna drop when I drop this episode, I will also include a blog, and I'll include a couple of my favorite podcast episodes of yours. And I'll ask you for some too, but definitely the fear one that I just listened to recently was like, boom. Yes. Yeah. Even, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but even people like you and I, who I'm luckily highly motivated, on my own, and I have discipline that I've built over time and all that kind of stuff. And I have, good work ethic. I too also sometimes need someone to like come give me a hug or like listen to a podcast of yours that's like, you got this, girl. And I'm like,
Or you need to like actually go on your bathroom floor and ugly cry with your snot mascara get in your mouth. Like you actually need it. And like, I'm like, I'm craving a good ugly cry. Like listen to The Notebook on purpose. Just, like, because I just need to get it out because I don't want it to like sit in me. So I feel you on that for sure.
Yeah. Getting that release in all different ways is so good.
Yes.
So alignment, is there any final words that you would like to give to our audience today on alignment?
Yeah. I just want everyone to remind themselves that in anything, if your goal is to fall in love with the process rather than what the process could produce, it's so much more fulfilling because then you can focus on the person that you're actually becoming and you can have more fun. And I think we underutilize the question with alignment of like, how could this be more fun? How could this be more fulfilling? How can I enjoy this more? We think that those questions are sometimes trivial, but we really don't know how much time we have here. And I lost 2 friends that were 30 years old and it shook me up where I was like, I'm never going to wish away a day. I'm never going to not ask myself those tough questions because intuitively right now, the person listening to this or watching this, that you might need to make a tweak in your life, a change in your life, or maybe a massive change. You might need to get back out there and start dating again, or you might need to leave a relationship that's not serving you or whatever it is. But like, you don't know how much time you have left here. So don't waste it. Right? Asking those tough questions and making those small little moves in the right direction. Like that's what I want for everyone. Like I want that fulfillment and it looks so different to every single person. So you have to ask yourself those questions,
Oh, I love that so much. And it just reminds me of a recent podcast that I did with one of my favorite authors, Gay Hendricks. He's a incredible psychologist. Yeah. The Big Leap. And he talks a lot about, being in our genius zone, which is really being in our alignment. And he says, like, one of the easiest questions that any of us can ask ourselves anytime is just, what am I doing when I'm the happiest?
Yep.
And just allow yourself the space to percolate whatever comes out with no judgment, with just, it is what it is. Like, what would I be doing if I could just do anything that makes me feel the happiest? And it's interesting because oftentimes many of us, we're so clouded with all these different things going on, the noise, everything else, that we don't even know what that is, right?
Yeah.
So I'd still journal and I'm like, okay, today I'm going to ask that question again, just to like check in, right?
Yeah. Well, and you're going to change too, right? Like you're going to evolve. And we get so afraid of that, but it's like, I'm working hard to constantly evolve. So my answer should probably change to a certain degree, know?
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Kacia, you're first of all, you're so in alignment in your life. And I'm so thankful to have you here on What's the Word. And I just want to give you a big virtual hug.
I know. I want to hug you. I feel like we just need to hang out in real life.
Yeah, we will. We will. Maybe I'll come meet you in Santorini or something on your honeymoon.
Perfect. Yeah, just come on over.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. I can't wait for us to really, dive into some of this later and see where we can best also align with each other in the things that we're doing and serving the community on a bigger level. Yeah. I'd love to bring, my self-care community to your community because I guarantee there's a lot of the busy moms that I work with that have a lot of stuff that they want to get more in alignment with. And I think that you could be a really great resource for that. So I just want to honor you and thank you so much. And I hope that you have a beautiful rest of the day. And I'll talk to you so soon.
Much. I appreciate you, girl. Thank you.
You're amazing. And thank you everyone for checking out What's the Word, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for joining me here at What's the Word. Follow us on social media with the links on the screen, and don't forget to like and share with your friend. Your support helps us grow and continue to make inspirational content. See you next time on What's the Word.